The largest fleet ever assembled in Valkyrie history emerged from hyperspace and entered the Sol system like an endless wave of darkness. 2,000 warships, a force so immense that it eclipsed the stars themselves. At the heart of the Armada sailed the Empire's greatest masterpiece, the Dominion of Stars. A colossal flagship built not merely to win wars, but to end civilizations. From its immense command bridge, Warmaster Thexian watched the blue planet hanging in the distance. Earth, the birthplace of humanity, the world that had refused to kneel. His own High Council had urged him to accept humanity's latest peace proposal. They had warned that the war had already cost the Empire too much. Thexian had rejected them all. Peace was weakness. Negotiation was humiliation. Only humanity's complete annihilation could restore Valkyrie honor and remind the galaxy that resisting the Empire was nothing more than a slow path to extinction. He rose from his command throne, his voice echoing across the silent bridge. All ships, advance in attack formation. Thousands of engines ignited simultaneously. We push straight to Earth. A tactical officer hesitated. What about the outer colonies, Warmaster? Thexian never looked away from the planet ahead. No delays. No diversions. We end this war today. Deep within Earth's orbital defense headquarters, Admiral Juan watched the enemy fleet appear across his tactical display. Red contact markers multiplied faster than the system could count them. His expression remained calm. But everyone on the bridge understood the reality. Humanity had gathered every warship it could possibly spare. 300 ships, everything they had, against 2,000 Valkyrie warships, nearly 7 enemy vessels for every human ship. Even with humanity's superior tactics, brilliant commanders, and experimental technology, the mathematics were merciless. Silence filled the command center. Then Admiral Juan spoke without taking his eyes off the display. Status of the Alcubierre network. Every officer on the bridge turned toward Dr. Sora. For a brief moment, the fate of Earth depended entirely on her answer. Online and ready, she replied. Her voice was steady, but Hyan could see the fear in her eyes. Though, I should mention we've never tested this many warp devices at once. The interactions could be unpredictable. Everything we've done has been unpredictable, Han said. That's why we're still alive. Captain Minho commanded the outer defenses at the Kuiper Belt. His orders were simple. Delay the enemy as long as possible. Make them pay for every kilometer. The Valkyrie hid his position like a hammer. Energy beams and missiles filled space. Minho's ships scattered and weaved using every asteroid and ice chunk for cover. They'd done this before. They knew the dance. Launch kinetic packages, Minho ordered. Hundreds of dense metal projectiles accelerated by magnetic rails shot toward the Valkyrie formation. The enemy shields caught most of them, but some got through. 3 Valkyrie cruisers lost power. 1 destroyer broke apart, its hull cracked by a direct hit. But there were so many Valkyrie ships. For every one that fell, 10 more pushed forward. Minho's fleet fought desperately, but they were being overwhelmed. All ships execute retreat pattern Delta, Minho commanded. Fall back to the Neptune line. His ships pulled back, firing as they went. Behind them, they left a trail of mines, debris, and nasty surprises. The Valkyrie pursued cautiously, having learned that empty space near human forces was never really empty. Lieutenant Jin Woo's stealth team watched from a hidden position as the Valkyrie fleet passed. They'd been waiting here for 2 weeks. Ships powered down to minimal levels, hoping for exactly this opportunity. Target the command ships, Jin Woo said quietly. Ignore the warships. Hit their coordination. His 6 ships powered up their drives and accelerated toward the Valkyrie rear. They carried special weapons, a combination of Dr. Sora's nanites and electromagnetic pulse bombs, not designed to destroy ships, but to disable their communication and control systems. The attack lasted 90 seconds. Jin Woo's team fired everything they had, then scattered before the Valkyrie could respond effectively. Fivari command vessels went dark. Their systems crashed by the EMP assault. Nanites spread through the affected ships, ensuring the damage would take days to repair. It wouldn't stop the invasion, but it would slow it down, make coordination harder. Every little bit helped. The battle reached Neptune 4 hours later. Commander Yuna's fleet had prepared carefully for this moment. They'd used the ice giant's gravity well to position themselves advantageously, and they'd seeded the space around Neptune with thousands of weapons platforms. Remember, Yuna told her fleet, we're not trying to win. We're trying to make them bleed. Make every ship they lose hurt. Make them question if Earth is worth this cost. The Velkari came in hot, expecting another delaying action. What they found was a carefully prepared kill zone. Human ships used Neptune's rings for cover, popping out to fire before disappearing again. The weapons platforms activated in waves, targeting Valkyrie ships from unexpected angles. War Master Thexian watched his forces take losses. 20 ships destroyed, 40 more damaged, and they hadn't even reached the inner system yet. How many defenders do they have at Earth? He demanded. Approximately 200 ships based on our intelligence. Then we're still crushing them, 10-1. Press the attack. But Thexian was learning what every Velkari commander had learned in this war. Numbers weren't everything. The humans fought with desperate creativity, using tactics no other species had ever tried. And they showed no sign of surrender, even facing impossible odds. By the time the Velkari fleet reached Jupiter orbit, they'd lost 75 ships. The Dominion of Stars was undamaged, its powerful shields holding against everything humanity threw at it. But the smaller vessels in Thexian's fleet were being picked apart. Captain Hana led a strike group that specialized in high-risk attacks. Her dozen ships were fast and maneuverable, crewed by volunteers who knew they probably wouldn't survive the battle. Target the supply ships, Hana ordered. If they can't refuel and rearm, they can't maintain the offensive. Her group dove into the Velkari formation, firing at tankers and ammunition transports. The escorts tried to protect them, but Hana's ships were too fast, too unpredictable. They used Jupiter's gravity to slingshot around the planet, coming at the Velkari from unexpected vectors. 6 supply ships exploded before the Velkari adapted. Then Hana's group paid the price. Enemy fire caught 3 of her ships, turning them to expanding clouds of debris. Hana's own ship took damage, limping away on failing engines. This is Hana to all human forces. She broadcast, "We got them. We hurt them. Make it count." Those were her last words. A Valkyrie beam weapon found her damaged ship and cut it in half. Admiral Hyun felt each loss like a physical blow. Good people dying, friends, heroes. But he couldn't stop now. The Valkyrie were entering the final trap. Dr. Sora prepared to activate the Alubier network on my mark. Throughout the inner solar system, thousands of small devices powered up. Each one was a warp drive, but tiny, designed to create localized distortions in spacetime. Individually, they were harmless. Together, activated simultaneously, they would create intersecting warp bubbles that would tear apart anything with active shields. The Velkari fleet pushed past Mars, heading straight for Earth. Thexian could see the blue planet on his displays so close. Victory was within reach. "All ships, prepare for final assault," he ordered. "We'll encircle Earth and offer one last surrender. If they refuse, we glass the planet." That's when the trap sprung. "Now," Hyan said simply, 5,000 warp devices activated at once. Space-time bent and twisted in impossible ways. The Velkari shields, which had protected them from energy weapons throughout the war, suddenly became death traps. The shields tried to maintain their protective fields through warped space, and the interaction was catastrophic. 300 Velkari ships simply exploded, torn apart by conflicting physical laws. Another 500 lost power, their shields and drives failing as systems overloaded trying to compensate for the spatial distortions. The Dominion of Stars survived. Its shields were too advanced, too powerful. They adapted to the warp fields, finding stable configurations. But the ship was alone now, surrounded by debris and crippled vessels. Thexian stared at his tactical display in shock. He'd lost nearly half his fleet in seconds. Hundreds of thousands of Velkari warriors dead, and the human ships were still there undamaged, because they'd been positioned outside the warp zones. War Master, we should retreat, his tactical officer urged. We cannot sustain these losses. No, Thexian said. His voice was hard. We came here to end this war. The Dominion alone is powerful enough to destroy Earth. We finish this. The massive ship accelerated toward Earth, its weapons charging. Thexian would glass the planet personally, show the humans and the entire galaxy what happened to species who defied the Velkari Empire. Lieutenant Jin Wu had been watching from his damaged stealth ship. His team was gone, killed in the fighting around Neptune. His ship had barely enough power to limp along, but he had one weapon left: anti-adder charges, enough to destroy a small moon or crack open a warship from the inside. "This is Jin Wu to Earth Command," he transmitted. "I can stop the Dominion, but I need someone to confirm my orders." Admiral Hun's face appeared on his screen. The old man looked tired, but his eyes were clear. "What do you need, Lieutenant?" "Permission to ram the Dominion. My ship is too damaged to escape anyway, but I can get into their hangar bay before they notice. The anti-adder charges will tear through their core." Hun closed his eyes briefly. "Are you sure?" "Yes, sir. For New Sol. For everyone we've lost. Let me make it count." "You have permission, Lieutenant." "And thank you. Your name will be remembered." Jin Wu smiled. "That's all any soldier can ask for." He cut the transmission and plotted his course. The Dominion's hangar bay was designed for large craft defended by automated systems, but those systems were designed for big, obvious threats. Not one small, nearly dead ship limping in on minimal power. Jin Wu slipped past the defenses like a ghost. His ship barely registered on Velkari sensors. By the time they noticed him, he was inside the hangar, touching down among their landing craft. Bellari security forces rushed toward his ship, weapons ready. Jin Wu looked at the picture on his console. His family, parents, siblings, nieces, and nephews all dead when New Sol burned. "This is for them," he whispered. He triggered the antimatter charges. "You have lost 37 ships this month." One council member stated the colony of New Sol had been humanity's pride. A garden world with blue oceans and green continents home to 4 billion people. Artists, scientists, farmers, children, people living ordinary lives, dreaming ordinary dreams. Warm Master Thexian's planet-killer ship, the Void Hammer, erased all of that in 3 hours. The weapon worked by destabilizing a planet's core. First came earthquakes, then volcanic eruptions, then the atmosphere burning away. By the end, New Sol was nothing but a cooling ball of cracked rock, still glowing red from internal heat. Everyone died. Not quickly, not mercifully. They died knowing what was happening, watching their world tear itself apart. Admiral Hune received the reports in his command center. He read them once, then again, unable to process the numbers. 4 billion gone. He'd known this was possible, but knowing and experiencing were different things. Around him, officers wept openly. Some sat in stunned silence. Others were angry, shouting for revenge. Yan felt nothing. The number was too large. His brain couldn't grasp it. Commander Yuna's message came through an hour later. Her face on the screen was pale, eyes red from crying. "Sir, we're receiving surrender proposals from several colonies. They're terrified. They think they're next." "Are they?" Hyun asked quietly. "Probably. The Velkari sent a message. They'll destroy 1 human world per week until we surrender." Advisor Nari burst into the command center without knocking. Her face was furious. "You have to surrender now, before they kill anyone else. We can't let this continue. If we surrender, they'll enslave everyone," Hyan replied. His voice was flat, emotionless. "They'll strip our technology, take our resources, and treat us like animals. Better than dead, is it?" Yan looked at her. "You weren't in the border skirmishes. You didn't see what happens to conquered populations. The Velkari don't treat their subjects well. Maybe death is cleaner. That's not your choice to make for billions of people." "No, Honed, it's not. But I have another option. Dr. Sora, is Project Sundial ready?" Dr. Sora appeared on a monitor. She looked haunted. "Admiral, we've run the simulations. It will work, but the consequences. Explain it." He unordered. Sora took a breath. We can weaponize stars using gravitational manipulation technology. We can trigger solar events, flares, coronal mass ejections, even premature supernovas in unstable stars. If we position these devices correctly, we can turn stellar systems into traps. How powerful are we talking? Nari asked, horrified. Powerful enough to destroy entire fleets, Sora replied, but also powerful enough to render systems uninhabitable. We'd be creating dead zones that nothing can survive for centuries, maybe longer. That's insane, Nari whispered. That's war, Yoon said. The Velkhari showed us there are no limits. They'll kill billions to make us submit, so we'll show them we can do worse. This will make us monsters, and we're already fighting monsters. Sometimes you beat monsters by becoming something they fear more. Engineer Taiyang led the team that installed the first sundial device. They chose the Arcturus system, a blue giant star that was already unstable. The Velkhari used Arcturus as a major staging point. Intelligence suggested they had over 100 ships gathering there for another assault. The device was small, no bigger than a shuttle. It didn't generate the stellar flare itself. It just gave the star a little push in the right direction. Physics did the rest. Devices in position, Taiyang reported from his ship, awaiting final authorization. Admiral Hyun sat in his command center, his finger hovering over the authorization button. This was the line. Once he crossed it, humanity would be using weapons that could destroy entire solar systems. Future generations would judge him for this, but future generations wouldn't exist if humanity surrendered. He pressed the button. Authorized execute Project Sundial. The device activated deep within Arcturus's chromosphere. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, the star's magnetic field began to shift. Pressure built up in the convection zone. The star was already unstable, prone to massive flares. The device just encouraged what was already going to happen eventually. Commander Yuna's fleet was positioned 12 light minutes away, watching through long-range sensors. "I'm detecting unusual stellar activity," her science officer reported. "How long until the Velkhari notice?" Yuna asked. "They're already moving. Some ships are breaking orbit. Not all of them, though. The Velkhari War Master in command of the Arcturus fleet had never seen a star weaponized before. He didn't understand what was happening until it was too late. The flare erupted with the force of 1,000,000 nuclear weapons. A wall of plasma and radiation exploded from Arcturus's surface, traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. It covered the distance to the Velkhari fleet in 8 minutes. The Velkhari shields were designed to stop energy weapons from other ships. They weren't designed to stop a stellar flare. It was like trying to block a tidal wave with a paper umbrella. 70 ships died instantly, simply vaporized by the heat. Another 50 had their shields overloaded and their hulls melted. Survivors tried to jump away, but their navigation systems were fried by the electromagnetic pulse. They drifted helplessly as secondary waves of radiation finished them off. Commander Yuna watched it happen. She felt no joy, no satisfaction, just a sick certainty that they'd crossed a threshold they could never step back from. "We're detecting survivors," her communications officer said. "Some escape pods made it clear. Rescue them," Yuna ordered. "All of them, sir. They're Velkhari. I know who they are. Rescue them anyway." When the Velkhari prisoners were brought aboard Yuna's ship, they expected torture or execution. Instead, they found medical care and decent treatment. One Velkhari soldier, his skin burned by radiation, looked at Yuna in confusion. "Why help us? We would have killed you all." "Because we're not you," Yuna replied. "We'll do terrible things to win. We'll burn stars and kill your fleets. But we won't torture prisoners. We won't murder the helpless. That's the line we won't cross." The Velkhari soldier said nothing, but his eyes showed something Yuna had never seen from his species before. Doubt War Master Thexian received the news about Arcturus with disbelief. They destroyed a star. Not destroyed, weaponized. They triggered a massive solar flare that consumed our fleet. 70 ships gone just like that. And if the humans could do it to Arcturus, they could do it to any system. The implications were terrifying. The Velkhari couldn't conquer a species that could turn stars into weapons. For the first time since the war began, Texian felt something close to fear. The galactic community reacted with horror to Project Sundial. Other species sent messages condemning humanity's actions. They called humans reckless, dangerous, insane. Some suggested the entire species should be quarantined or eliminated for the safety of the galaxy. Advisor Nari brought these messages to Admiral Hune. "They're afraid of us now. More afraid than they are of the Vakari." "Good," Hun said coldly. "Fear keeps people alive. If the galaxy thinks we're crazy enough to burn stars, maybe they'll think twice before threatening us." "Is that what we are now? The crazy species everyone fears? If that's what it takes to survive, yes." Dr. Sora entered the command center. She looked worse than before, barely sleeping, driven by desperate energy. "I've analyzed the Velkari technology we captured. Their shields, their weapons. I think I can integrate some of it into our ships." "How long?" Hyan asked. "Months. But there's something else. The nanites we deployed are working better than expected. We're detecting system failures across the Velkari fleet. They're having to quarantine entire ships. So, we're hurting them. We're doing more than that. We're making them paranoid. They don't know which ships are infected. They can't trust their own technology anymore." This was the war now. Not fleets meeting in honorable combat. Not armies marching under flags. Just desperation and terror on both sides, each trying to break the other's will before their own broke first. Thexian called an emergency meeting with the High Council. "We need to reconsider this campaign. The humans are not behaving rationally. They're destroying stars using weapons that could damage entire regions of space. If we continue, they might render half the galaxy uninhabitable. Then we must destroy them completely," one council member replied, "before they become a threat to everyone." "We tried that. We killed 4 billion of them, and they responded by weaponizing a star. What will they do if we try to exterminate them completely? How far will they go?" The question hung in the air. The Vakari had conquered 100 worlds, but always with the assumption that conquered meant controlled. Dead populations couldn't be controlled, destroyed systems couldn't be exploited. What was the point of winning if you turned the prize to ashes? "I recommend we offer terms." Thexian said it hurt to suggest this. The Velkari didn't negotiate with primitives, but these weren't primitives anymore. They were something new, something dangerous. "What terms?" the council asked. "Mutual withdrawal. They keep their core systems. We take no more human worlds, and we both agree never to use stellar weapons again." "That's not victory." "No," Thexian agreed. "But it's survival, and right now, survival is victory enough." The proposal was sent to Earth. Admiral Hyan read it with his senior staff. The Velkari wanted peace, or at least a ceasefire. They would stop their advance. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Mars. The Velkari Grand Fleet remained in the outer solar system, repairing and regrouping. But across human space, the war had spread like fire. Lieutenant Jin Wu crouched in the darkness of an abandoned space station near Proxima Centauri. The Velkari had taken this system 4 weeks ago. They thought it was secure. They were wrong. "Packages in place," he whispered into his communication device. His team of 6 soldiers worked quickly, attaching small devices to the station's power conduits. The devices looked simple, but each contained cutting-edge technology, dormant artificial intelligence that would wait, watch, and strike when the time was right. "How long until activation?" asked Private Hana. She was the youngest member of the team, barely 22, but she had steady hands and nerves of steel. "Could be days, could be months," Jin Wu replied. "The AI decides when conditions are optimal, when the most Velkari ships are docked, when their guard is down. This was humanity's new strategy. If they couldn't defend every system, they'd make every conquered system dangerous. Sleeper weapons that could activate weeks or months after being planted, mines that looked like debris, computer viruses that spread slowly through Velkari networks. Death by 1,000 cuts movement," Hana warned. Her scanner showed Velkari patrol ships approaching. "Time to go," Jin Wu said. His team slipped away through maintenance tunnels, moving like ghosts. Behind them, the devices waited in silence, invisible to Velkari scanners. Patient, deadly. On Earth, Dr. Sora hadn't slept properly in days. Her laboratory was a chaos of half-finished projects and desperate ideas. Traditional weapons weren't enough. They needed something revolutionary, something the Velkari couldn't counter. "Show me the nanite tests again," she told her assistant, a young scientist named Taeyong. Taeyong pulled up a holographic display. "We've successfully programmed the nanites to target Velkari technology specifically. They infiltrate through any opening in the hull, then spread through the ship's systems. Within a week, they degrade power conduits, weaken structural supports, corrupt computer systems, and they can't detect them. Not easily. The nanites are smaller than bacteria and produce almost no energy signature. By the time symptoms appear, the infection is usually widespread." Sora nodded slowly. It was a weapon that worked like a disease, silent, invisible, spreading from ship to ship through docking procedures and shared facilities. It felt wrong somehow, like they were abandoning honor in warfare. But the Velkari had burned Mars and killed 4 billion people on New Sol with their planet cracker weapons. Honor was a luxury humanity couldn't afford. "Begin production," Sora ordered. "I want enough nanites to seed every Valkyrie-occupied system within the month." Captain Minho stood in the briefing room of his new flagship, the Defiant. His reputation had grown after the Mars engagement. Now he commanded a larger strike group, 30 ships tasked with raiding Velkari supply lines. "Our target is here," he said, pointing to a star map. "The Epsilon Aerodani Depot. The Velkari use it to refuel and resupply before pushing deeper into human space. If we take it out, we delay their next offensive by weeks. We'll be outnumbered 5-1, his second officer noted. "We're always outnumbered," Minho replied with a grim smile. "That's why we don't fight fair." The raid on Epsilon Aerodani was brutal and quick. Minho's ships came in fast. Using the system's asteroid belt for cover, they launched their attack not at the depot itself, but at the fuel tankers orbiting nearby. Kinetic weapons struck at precise points, rupturing storage tanks and sending millions of layers of fuel spilling into space. When Velkari defense ships moved to protect the tankers, Minho's group hit them from behind. Missiles and railgun fire crippled 3 escorts before they could return fire effectively. Then, just as reinforcements arrived, the human ships scattered in 12 different directions. The Velkari tried to pursue, but that was the trap. Each human ship led its pursuers into prepared ambush zones where more mines and remote weapons platforms waited. By the time the Velkari realized what was happening, they'd lost 8 ships, and the fuel depot was in ruins. Minho's strike group regrouped at a hidden base in deep space. They'd lost 4 ships in the raid, but the math still favored humanity. Every Valkyrie ship they destroyed was a victory. Every supply depot they ruined bought time. Warm Master Thexian stared at the tactical reports with growing frustration. His fleet had grown, not shrunk. The Velkari High Council had sent reinforcements. He now commanded nearly 1,000 warships. By all logic, he should be crushing the humans. Instead, he was bleeding. Small losses. A ship here, a convoy there. Stations sabotaged from within. Supply chains disrupted. And now this latest intelligence report. "They're using what?" he asked his intelligence officer. "Nanotechnology. Microscopic machines that infiltrate our ships and cause system failures. We've detected them in 15 vessels so far. The infection may be more widespread. Can we stop it? We're developing countermeasures, but it takes time. Meanwhile, we have to quarantine affected ships and perform extensive decontaminations." Thexian wanted to roar in frustration. This wasn't war. This was pest control. The humans refused to fight properly. They used tricks, traps, and technology that seemed designed specifically to torment rather than defeat. "What about the final assault on Earth?" he asked. "Are we ready?" "Not yet, Warm Master. We need another month to consolidate our forces and ensure supply lines are secure. Another month of losses, another month of human raids and sabotage." Thexian was beginning to understand why the High Council was receiving criticism. How could a primitive species resist for so long? But he knew the answer. The humans weren't primitive. They were desperate, and desperation made them dangerous. Commander Yuna reviewed the latest intelligence from her quarters. The news was mixed. Humanity was holding, but barely. The Velkari controlled 15 human systems. Now, Billions of people lived under occupation. Resistance groups fought guerrilla campaigns on occupied worlds, but it was costly work, and humanity's fleet was shrinking, not as fast as the Valkyrie fleet, but shrinking nonetheless. Every battle, even victories, cost ships they couldn't replace. Earth shipyards worked around the clock, but building a warship took months. A message came through on her private channel. Admiral Hyan's face appeared on her screen. He looked even more tired than usual. "Yuna, I need you to lead a special mission," he said without preamble. "What kind of mission?" "We're sending a strike force to Proxima Centauri. The Valkyrie have a staging area there. We need to steal their technology, specifically their shield generators and weapon systems." Yuna felt her stomach tighten. "That's suicide. Proxima is heavily defended." "I know. That's why I'm asking you. You're our best commander. If anyone can pull this off, it's you. How many ships do I get?" 20. Your choice of crews and captains. 20 ships against a fortified system. The math was terrible, but Yuna understood why it was necessary. If humanity could reverse engineer Valkyrie technology, even partially, it would change everything. "When do we leave?" she asked. 48 hours. Yuna. Hyun paused. "We need this. The war is dragging on. Our people are exhausted. We need a breakthrough." "I understand, sir." The mission to Proxima Centauri was everything Yuna feared it would be. They went in fast, exploiting a brief window when most of the Valkyrie fleet was out on patrol. Her 20 ships split into multiple groups, each with a specific target. Captain Hana led the group that penetrated the main facility. Her boarding teams fought through Valkyrie defenders in brutal close-quarters combat. The Valkyrie were stronger and better armored, but humans were more flexible and creative. They used the station's own systems against its defenders, venting atmosphere in some sections while overloading power in others. The battle for the research wing lasted 3 hours. When it was over, Hana's team had secured 2 intact shield generators and a complete weapons array. But the cost was terrible. 70% casualties. Good people who'd never go home. "We have the package," Hana reported. Her voice was from shouting orders during the fight. Requesting immediate extraction, Yuna's ship swept in to recover the boarding teams. Valkyrie reinforcements were arriving. The battle turned into a running fight through Proxima's inner system. Human ships covered each other's retreat, firing and maneuvering in coordinated patterns that had been practiced a H-100 times. They made it out, but barely. Of the 20 ships that entered Proxima, only 6 limped back to Earth. 14 ships destroyed. Thousands of crew dead or captured, but clutched in their remaining cargo holds were the prizes. Valkyrie technology, the seeds of a possible breakthrough. Yuna stood in the medical bay of her ship, watching doctors tend to wounded crew members. She felt hollow inside. They'd succeeded. The mission was a success, but looking at all the empty bunks where friends had once slept, victory felt like defeat. Dr. Sora met her when she docked at Earth. The scientist's eyes were bright with excitement, but she sobered when she saw Yuna's expression. "I heard about your losses," Sora said quietly. "I'm sorry." "Just make it worth it," Yuna replied. "Use what we brought you. Turn it into something that saves lives." "I will, I promise." In the Valkyrie High Council chamber half a galaxy away, Warm Master Thexian faced angry questions from his superiors. Warm Master Thexian stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest. He was enormous, nearly 3 meters tall, with dark purple skin and 4 arms. His species had evolved on a high-gravity world, making them naturally strong and resilient. But it was his mind, not his body, that had earned him command of the Grand Fleet. He studied the primitive star system ahead. Sol, the humans called it, a yellow star with 8 planets and countless rocks floating in the outer darkness. His sensors showed scattered human ships, maybe 60 vessels total, hiding among the asteroids. "They're trying to ambush us," his tactical officer said. The Valkyrie had excellent sensors. They could see through most stealth technology. "Should we destroy them before advancing?" "No," Thexian replied. "Let them think they're clever. We'll sweep through their outer defenses and proceed directly to their home world. Once their planet is under our guns, they'll surrender like all the others." The Grand Fleet moved forward in perfect formation. 800 warships advancing in waves, their shields glowing with power. They had done this 100 times before. The pattern never changed. Primitives tried to resist. Primitives died. Primitives surrendered. Dexian expected today to be no different. Commander Yuna watched the Valkyrie fleet approach. Her fingers danced across her console, sending coded signals to other human ships. The enemy was entering the Kuiper Belt now, pushing through the outer edge of humanity's territory. "Remember," she said to her crew, "we're not trying to win, we're trying to make them pay." The first mines activated when the Valkyrie Vanguard reached the calculated point. But these weren't normal mines. Dr. Sora had designed them to look exactly like ordinary chunks of ice and rock. They drifted along with millions of other pieces of debris, completely passive until triggered. 10 Valkyrie cruisers passed through what looked like empty space. Then the mines woke up. They didn't explode immediately. Instead, they accelerated toward their targets using tiny thrusters, building speed, waiting for the perfect moment. The Valkyrie shields detected them too late. The mines were moving too fast, coming from too many angles. 3 cruisers died in the first wave of explosions. 2 more lost their shields and drifted helplessly. "What was that?" Thexian roared. His tactical display showed the losses. 5 ships gone in seconds. Where did those weapons come from? "Unknown, Warm Master. They appeared to be natural debris until they activated. Scan everything. I want every rock within 1,000 kilometers analyzed." But that was exactly what Yuna wanted. While the Valkyrie fleet slowed down to scan every asteroid, human ships began their real attack. Captain Minho led Strike Group 7. His 12 ships were small and fast, built for hit-and-run attacks rather than prolonged combat. They emerged from behind a massive asteroid already firing, but they weren't firing at the warships. They were targeting the supply vessels at the back of the Valkyrie formation. The big cargo ships carrying fuel, ammunition, and repair materials. Minho's weapons were simple. Railguns that launched dense metal slugs at incredible speeds. No fancy energy weapons, no advanced technology, just mass and velocity. And physics didn't care about shields when a 5-ton chunk of metal hit at a significant fraction of light speed. 2 Valkyrie supply ships broke apart. A third lost its engines and began tumbling. Before the Valkyrie escorts could react, Minho's group had disappeared back into the asteroid field. "They're using guerrilla tactics." Thexian's tactical officer reported, "Small groups attacking our support vessels, then retreating before we can respond." Thexian's face darkened. This was not how wars were fought. Honorable species met in open battle, fleet against fleet. They didn't hide like scavengers, attacking supply lines and running away. All ships maintained formation and proceed to the inner system. "We'll deal with these pests once we control their planet." But the pests weren't done. As the Grand Fleet pushed deeper into the Kuiper Belt, they triggered more mines. Some exploded. Others released clouds of metal fragments that shredded sensor arrays and communication equipment. A few carried electronic warfare packages that jammed Valkyrie targeting systems. Yuna's main fleet stayed hidden, watching the enemy struggle through the debris field. She could see the Valkyrie getting frustrated. Their formations were breaking up as ships tried to avoid mines and debris. That was perfect. "All ships," she broadcast, "execute scatter pattern Delta." Across the battlefield, human vessels activated drives and scattered in every direction. Not retreating, just spreading out, making themselves harder to target. The Valkyrie fleet tried to pursue, but human ships were smaller and more maneuverable. They wove between asteroids, used gravity assist from larger rocks, and generally refused to fight the way the Valkyrie expected. "We're losing them," the tactical officer reported. "They're too fast in this terrain." "Then we'll force them into open space," Thexian decided. "All ships, prepare to jump to Mars orbit. We'll bypass their outer defenses entirely." It was a good plan. The Valkyrie could use their jump drives to move instantly across the system, leaving the human ships behind. They would take Mars, establish a forward base, and threaten Earth from close range. What Thexian didn't know was that humanity had expected this. They wanted the Valkyrie to jump to Mars. The Grand Fleet materialized near Mars in a brilliant flash of energy. 700 warships appeared in perfect formation, their shields up, their weapons charged. They found dozens of human ships waiting in orbit around the red planet. Finally, Thexian said with satisfaction, "A proper battle. All ships engage the enemy," he ordered. The human ships opened fire immediately. Missiles, lasers, kinetic weapons, everything they had. It looked impressive, but the Velkari shields held easily. The return fire was devastating. Within minutes, 5 human ships were destroyed. 3 more were crippled and drifting. "They're withdrawing," the tactical officer reported. The remaining human ships were indeed pulling back, firing as they retreated. It looked like a defeat, a rout, exactly what the Velkari expected. "Let them run," Thexian said. "Begin landing operations. I want troops on Mars within the hour." The Velkari landing ships descended toward Mars's surface. They carried thousands of soldiers and combat vehicles. This was standard procedure. Take the planet, establish control, show the enemy their resistance was useless. The landing ships touched down in the lowlands near an abandoned human city. Valkyrie troops poured out weapons ready expecting resistance. Instead, they found nothing. The city was empty. Not just evacuated, completely empty. Buildings stood intact, but lifeless. Streets were clear. It was like everyone had simply vanished. "War Master, something is wrong," the ground commander reported. "There are no humans here. No bodies, no signs of fighting. They just left." "Then secure the area and move on," Vexian replied. He was focused on the orbital battle, tracking the retreating human ships. That's when Mars began to explode. The humans hadn't abandoned their cities. They had turned them into traps. Every building was rigged with explosives. Every street had hidden mines. Power plants had been set to overload. Even the defense satellites that seemed destroyed were actually just waiting, their reactors building to critical mass. The first explosion killed 300 Velkari soldiers instantly. The second took out an entire landing zone. The third triggered a chain reaction that consumed 6 city blocks. Within 10 minutes, Mars's surface was a hellscape of fire and destruction. "Get our troops off that planet," Dexian roared, but retreating was harder than landing. The orbital defense platforms that had seemed abandoned were activating. They weren't targeting Velkari ships, though. They were firing at each other, at asteroids, at anything that would create debris. Within an hour, Mars' orbit was filled with metal fragments moving at deadly speeds. 3 Velkari ships trying to evacuate troops ran into the debris field. Their shields flickered and failed. Metal shards tore through hull plating. One ship exploded. The others limped away, heavily damaged. "Status report," Pexian demanded. 18 ships destroyed or disabled. 4,000 ground troops lost. Multiple vessels damaged. The debris field around Mars is too dense for safe operations. 18 ships. Thexian felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Doubt. Not about victory. The Velkari would still win. They had too many ships, too much power, but about cost. Taking Mars had cost them 18 ships and accomplished nothing. The humans had evacuated everyone worth taking. All they'd captured was an empty, burning planet. And if Mars cost this much, what would Earth cost? "Pull all forces back to high orbit," he ordered. "We need to reassess." On Earth, Admiral Hyan watched the Velkari fleet retreat from Mars. His command center erupted in tears. People were hugging, crying with relief. They'd actually hurt the enemy, made them bleed, made them retreat. But Hyun didn't cheer. He looked at the losses. 23 human ships destroyed, Mars rendered uninhabitable, and the Velkari fleet was still there, still strong, still coming. "We won the first round," he said quietly to Commander Yuna, via communication link. "But this is just beginning." Yuna nodded. She was standing on the bridge of her damaged ship, watching repair crews patch holes in the hull. How long before they attack again? Days, maybe a week. They'll need to repair and regroup. But they'll be back, and next time they'll be ready for our tricks. Commander Yuna stared at the display screen in front of her. The numbers made no sense. They had to be wrong, but deep in her chest, she knew they were real. The Velkari Empire had destroyed the Centauri Alliance in 2 days. 2 days. The Alliance had 43 warships, 12 defense stations and millions of soldiers. Now they had nothing but ash and scattered refugee ships running for their lives. "How many survivors?" Yuna asked. Her voice was steady, but her hands gripped the edge of the console until her knuckles turned white. "Maybe 200,000. Her second officer replied, "Out of 4 billion. The bridge of the Earth defense ship Horizon fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. The Valkyrie were coming, and humanity was next. Admiral Hune called an emergency meeting at Earth Defense Command. Every senior officer attended, either in person or through hologram. The room buzzed with nervous energy. Some officers whispered to each other. Others sat in grim silence. Hun was 60 years old with gray hair and tired eyes. He had fought in the border skirmishes 20 years ago. Back then, humanity's enemies used missiles and bullets. The Valkyrie used something far worse. "The Valkyrie sent us a message this morning," Hyun said. His voice filled the room. "They gave us 1 week to surrender. If we refuse, they will treat us as hostiles." Hostiles? Captain Minho stood up. He was younger than most officers in the room, barely 35, but he had a reputation for clever tactics. "They mean they'll wipe us out, just like the Centauri, just like the Riel coalition before them." "Yes," Hyen said simply. "Then we surrender," someone said. Yuna turned to see Advisor Nari, a civilian representative. "We cannot win. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Their shields can stop anything we throw at them. Their weapons can burn planets from orbit. We need to negotiate." "Negotiate what?" Mining Ho's voice was sharp. "Our surrender. They don't negotiate, they conquer. Every species they've encountered either bows or dies. Then we bow and live." Nari shot back. "Better to be alive under Valkyrie rule than dead and free." The room erupted in arguments. Some agreed with Nari. Others wanted to fight. Eunice said nothing. She just kept seeing those numbers. 4 billion dead in 2 days. Hyen raised his hand, and the room quieted. "I understand both positions, but there's a third option. Dr. Sora, please share your research." A woman in a white lab coat stood. Dr. Sora was the head of the Experimental Weapons Division. She looked nervous, clutching a datapad like it might save her life. "The Valkyrie have superior technology," Sora began. "Their shields, their weapons, their engines. We cannot match them in direct combat." But she paused and touched her datapad. A hologram appeared in the center of the room. "We don't have to fight them directly." The hologram showed a Valkyrie warship. It was massive, 3 times the size of humanity's largest carrier. Energy shields glowed around it like a blue bubble. "Their shields stop energy weapons perfectly," Sora continued. "Lasers, plasma bolts, particle beams, nothing gets through. But their shields were designed for fighting other advanced species that fight the same way they do." "What are you saying?" Yuna asked. "I'm saying we don't fight like them." Sora changed the hologram. Now it showed something simple. A rock. Just a rock floating in space. Kinetic weapons. Dumb chunks of metal moving fast. Very fast. Their shields can stop them, but only if they see them coming. And if we accelerate rocks to near light speed, the hologram showed the rock hitting the Valkyrie ship. The ship cracked open like an egg. "That's theory," someone objected. "We don't know if it would actually work." "It's better than nothing," Minho said. He was studying the hologram with interest. "What else?" Sora smiled for the first time. "Mines. Lots of mines. Not the kind that explode when touched. The kind that hide and wait. The kind that look like space debris until a target gets close. The Valkyrie use formations. They group their ships together for maximum firepower. If we can get mines into those formations, it's asymmetric warfare," Hun said. "We cannot beat them in a fair fight. So, we make the fight unfair." "Some would call it cowardly," Nari said quietly. "Some would call it survival," Yuna replied. She looked at Hyen. "What do you need from us?" "Time," Yan said. "Time to build these weapons. Time to train our forces in new tactics. Time to prepare." He looked around the room at each officer. "I'm recommending to Earth's government that we reject the Valkyrie ultimatum. That means war, full war. Does anyone object?" Silence filled the room. Even Nari said nothing, though she looked pale. Then it settled. Hyan said. "Captain Minho, you'll take command of our outer system defenses. Commander Yuna, your fleet will hold the line at the Kuiper Belt. Dr. Sora, you have unlimited resources. Build everything you showed us and more. What will you tell the Velkari?" Nari asked. Hun's expression hardened. "I'll tell them humanity doesn't bow. Not today. Not ever." 3 days later, Earth's government officially rejected the Velkari ultimatum. The message was broadcast on all channels, in every language humanity spoke. It was simple and clear. "We will not surrender. We will defend our home. We will fight." Yuna watched the broadcast from her quarters aboard the Horizon. Around her, the ship buzzed with activity as crews prepared for battle. New weapons were being loaded. Old shields were being reinforced. Everyone knew what was coming. Her second officer knocked on her door. "Commander, we're getting reports. Valkyrie ships have entered the outer system. Their grand fleet. At least 800 warships." Yuna felt her stomach drop. 800. Humanity's entire fleet numbered maybe 300 ships, and most were smaller vessels. The math was brutal. "How long until they reach our position?" she asked. 36 hours at their current speed. 36 hours. A day and a half until the war began. Until humanity would learn if clever tactics could beat superior technology. Until they would discover if rocks and mines could stop an empire that had crushed 100 worlds. Yuna stood and straightened her uniform. "Sound general quarters. I want every ship at battle stations. And send a message to Admiral Hyan. Tell him we're ready." She wasn't sure if that was true, but it didn't matter anymore. The Velkari were coming. Ready or not, humanity would fight, and if they lost, at least the galaxy would know they didn't go quietly. In the command center, Hun received Yuna's message. He looked at the tactical display showing the approaching Velkari fleet. It was like watching a wave of darkness roll toward them. So many ships, so much power. But Juan had learned something in his long military career. Power wasn't everything. Sometimes the smaller fighter won because they were willing to do things the bigger opponent never expected. He opened a channel to all human forces. "This is Admiral Hyun. In 36 hours, we face the Velkari Empire. They expect us to meet them in open battle. They expect us to line up our ships and trade fire until one side breaks. They expect us to follow the rules of war as they understand them." He paused. "We're going to disappoint them. We're going to show them that humanity doesn't play by anyone's rules but our own. Hold your positions, trust your training, and remember, we're not trying to destroy their fleet. We're just trying to make them bleed. Make every kilometer cost them. Make them remember us." Across human space, from the Kuiper Belt to the inner planets, ships took up positions not in neat formations like the textbooks taught, but scattered and hidden, mixed in with asteroids lurking behind moons. Anywhere the enemy wouldn't expect, the trap was set. Now they just had to wait for the predator to step into it.